Hi y'all, we're back for another one. So for this video, I've got all of the books that I read in the month of June. So let's start off with some stats. I've decided that I want to start including a little bit more stats in my monthly wrap-ups than I have been in the past. So here we go. So let's start off with, I read 11 books in the month of June, which is a lot for me. Normally my average is between 6 and 8. So 11 is a lot. My average rating was a 4.11. So that is a pretty good month as far as reading. And most of that I have to equate to the Blood and Ash reread that I started. So average rating of 4.11. I read 5 physical books. I listened to 5 audiobooks, so that is also a lot for me. And then I read 1 Kindle book. And I did read, one of the books I counted as a physical book, but I did read a little bit of it on my Kindle. So like 1.25 books I read on my Kindle or something like that. But I think the reason that I read, or rather listened to so many audiobooks this month was because I painted my kitchen counter one weekend and I listened to an audiobook the entire time I was doing that. So that was several hours of painting where I got to listen to almost an entire audiobook. So I think that's why I listened to 5 audiobooks instead of my normal 4. So let's go ahead and start off with the first book that I finished in June, which was From Blood and Ash. So the first book that I finished in the month of June was From Blood and Ash. It is the first book in this series and it is a reread for me. And I absolutely loved it. Again, I love the story. I love Poppy. I loved reading about all of the characters again. So in this book, we're introduced to our main female character, Penelope, and her friends call her Poppy. And she is the maiden. So she lives with the Ascended, who are kind of like royalty, dukes, lords, upper class, rich. And she lives in the castle with the Duke and the Duchess. And the maiden is not allowed to speak to anybody. She's not allowed to touch anyone. No one's allowed to touch her. She's not allowed to converse with anyone. And she has to wear a veil anytime she goes out in public. So no one has seen her face. A select few people have seen her face, including the Duke and Duchess of Castle Tierman, and then her lady's maid and her 2 guards. So we're following Poppy in her day-to-day life of being the maiden and how she's struggling without having any human contact. And she doesn't just let this slide. She has been secretly training with one of her guards for the last several years on how to fight and defend herself. And the main reason for that is because when she was a child, her parents and her brother tried to escape. They tried to escape Solis, which is the land that they live in. And whilst they were escaping, they were attacked. And from her memories, her parents were not able to defend themselves. She was not able to defend herself. And her brother and herself are the only ones who lived. So her parents were killed. And it is thought that her parents were killed by the Craven. Now, in this book, the King and Queen of Solis tell the people that the Craven are created by the Atlanteans. And that the Atlanteans are bad. And that is why the Craven exist. And that in order to protect the people from the Craven, the people must give their 3rd son or daughter to the temples, to the priests and priestesses, and then their 2nd sons and daughters must serve the castle as ladies' maids or servants, stuff like that, and then eventually become ascended themselves. So in order to keep the people in line and to protect them from the Craven that the Atlanteans created, they must give away their children and never see them again and obey so that the gods don't get mad. Poppy has learned to defend herself, and she goes and helps people who have been bitten by cravens so that they don't turn into cravens themselves. And this is highly illegal. And not only is she not supposed to leave the castle, but just putting someone out of their misery is illegal. Because otherwise, if you're found to be bitten by a craven, you're supposed to be publicly executed. She tries to help people have a little bit of dignity if they've been bitten by a craven. And most of the time it's whilst they've been defending other people in the towns. So we follow Poppy and one of her new guards, Hawk, and through their journey and what happens. I don't want to give away any spoilers for any of those who haven't read the book, but we follow Poppy along a very interesting journey that she goes on, and she learns a lot of things about herself and a lot of things that were kept hidden from her. Some things that she's naive in, but that's because people have purposefully kept things from her because she was the maiden, or just because the Ascended have lied to a lot of people, including Poppy. So I really, again, love this book, love the story, and I cannot wait to continue it next month. So I gave From Blood and Ash 4.5 stars. So the second book that I finished in June was an audiobook, and that was First Time Caller by B.K. Borison. I have read her other series, Love Light Farms, and I absolutely love those books. I really, really enjoyed them. So in First Time Caller, we're introduced to our main male character, Aiden, and our main female character, Lucy. And in the opening scene, you have Lucy coming into her daughter's room. So Lucy is a single mom, walking into her daughter's room because she hears her daughter talking. And her daughter's, I think, 12. So she thinks it's odd because her daughter is supposed to be asleep. Well, it turns out her daughter is on her phone talking to somebody. And her daughter has called in to this radio show, this Heartstrings radio show, and is trying to help her mom find a partner. So her mom has basically been single the daughter's entire life. And that's upsetting for her because she knows that her mom would love to have a partner in life. And so through the show, Lucy will be on the show and try to find and go on dates and then try to fall in love. She goes and sits in the radio booth and talks on the radio show, and they have a bunch of callers and people who write in, and she tries to pick people to go on dates with, and they don't necessarily turn out really well. Lucy tries to pick guys, her ex tries to pick guys who her ex and the baby daddy are really good friends. They get along, they live next door to each other. I don't think they were ever married, but they got pregnant as teenagers. And so there's no animosity there. So they get along really well. So I think the dad is Grayson. So he tries to pick somebody for her to go on a date with. The other radio host, Aiden, he picks a guy for her to go on a date with, and really none of these dates go very well. And of course, as things progress, feelings start to pop up between Aiden and Lucy. And it was a really cute story, and I really liked the flow of it, and I love B.K. Borison's writing, so definitely would recommend this book. And I ended up giving it 4 stars. So the next book that I finished was A Kingdom of Blood and Ash, which is the second book in the From Blood and Ash series by Jennifer L. Armentrout. So in this book, we follow Poppy and her companions on their journey, getting to a different place, going to a different place. She's learning a lot of things. She's astonished by a lot of things. She gets kidnapped twice. It's either in this book or the next one that she gets kidnapped the second time. But a lot of stuff goes down in these books. And again, thoroughly enjoyed my reread of this series. So I gave A Kingdom of Flesh, did I say Blood and Ash? A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, I gave it 4.5 stars. And then I read The Wedding People, and The Wedding People was my library pick for our spinner wheel. So I listened to The Wedding People, and I, again, really enjoyed this audiobook. So we follow our main character, Phoebe, and she has gone through a rather nasty divorce. Her husband cheated on her a lot, and was very blatant about breaking up their marriage. So she was going through some really hard times. So she decided that after she came home one day and she found her cat dead in the basement, her cat had been sick, but she found him dead in the basement, that she booked a trip to this really expensive hotel, paid for one night, and was going to unalive herself because she just didn't see the point in going on anymore. She felt like there wasn't any more reason for her to live. She didn't like her job as a professor. She felt like she wasn't going anywhere with that. She had to work with her ex-husband and the mistress at the school, and she was writing a book or a dissertation or something like that, and she had been working on it for the last 10 years but wasn't really getting anywhere with it. And so she was very depressed and just didn't see the point. And so she goes and checks into this hotel, and turns out she is the only one at this hotel who is not a part of a wedding that's going on. And when the bride asks who she is she, part of her fiance's family, she says no, that she's not part of the wedding, and the bride is astonished because she thought everybody at the hotel was there for her wedding. So through a series of events, the bride ends up befriending Phoebe and is kind of attached to Phoebe, and doesn't want her to kill herself because it'll ruin her wedding. And also, the bride can't really be herself amongst her friends and family, but she can be herself around Phoebe because she doesn't know Phoebe. So turns out she tries to involve Phoebe in a lot of the pre-wedding activities that go on, and a lot of things happen, and unexpected things happen. And so Phoebe decides to not go through with it and decides that she does want to live. She just wants to change how she has been living and make her life more worthwhile. So I really enjoyed this book. At parts it was a little tough to listen to just because of the emotional content of the book. So just be prepared for that if you decide that you want to read it. And I gave The Wedding People 3.75 stars. After that, I read the 5th book in the How to Date a Douchebag series by Sarah Ney, and that was The Lying Hours. And this book was fine. So in each book in this series, we follow a different couple. So in this book, it was another one of the wrestlers and then somebody that he met. So the girl is not involved in wrestling, but the guy is. And all of these books surround wrestling in some way at this college that's very known for wrestling. And this was not my favorite book in the series. I would say, honestly, like 90% of the book was about them trying to get together. They met on this dating app where the guy was pretending to be his roommate because his roommate didn't actually want to put the effort in on the dating app to find women. So he asked his roommate to do it for him, and then the other guy just goes on the dates. So he shows up for the dates and doesn't really know anything about the women because he's not the one who's been conversing with them this whole time. So, what the heck is the guy's name? Abe. So Abe has been talking to Skylar on the dating app, and the roommate ends up going on a date and it does not turn out well. Skylar leaves within the first 10 minutes of the date because the roommate is a dick. However, Abe kind of has a crush on Skylar and continues to talk to her through the app. So Skylar thinks that it's the asshole dude that she was on the date with who's continuing to try to talk to her. And she's like, what's the deal? You're perfectly fine with me when we're talking on the phone, but when we're in person, you're not nice. So Abe ends up setting up a double date with him and the roommate, and then Skylar and her roommate. And Skylar's roommate, she can tell that Abe and Skylar are into each other. And so ends up, they kind of start dating. And then Abe has to like explain to her like why he did all this stuff, that he was lying to her, blah, blah, blah. And so it's kind of follows a pattern of Abe lies to her about something, she finds out about it, and then she's pissed off, and then she forgives him. And so literally that's 90% of the book. And then the last 10% of the book is, well, they're together. Yep, she decided to forgive him one last time and they're together. Not their story as a couple together at all, just them trying to get together. So I wish it was a little more half and half so that we could, you know, see them happy together and not constantly, oh, well, he lied to me, so I don't know if I can forgive him for that. It was fine. It was fine. I don't know. It was not my favorite of the series. So I ended up giving that book 3.5 stars. And that was my one Kindle read for the month. I'm gonna run out of time because I'm supposed to leave in 40 minutes. Okay, so then next I finished an audiobook, and that was Broken Country by Claire Leslie Hall. So this was kind of, I would say mystery. I wouldn't say mystery thriller, just mystery. I can never remember main characters' names. Okay, so we have Beth and her husband. What is her husband's name? Her son is Bobby. Sun just went behind a cloud, so it's a little darker now. So in Broken Country, we're introduced to Beth, and she is married to her husband on a farm. And pretty much the first scene is actually, it seems like a police investigation that somebody has died. And we keep going back and forth in time. So the first scene, like the prologue, is somebody has died and the police are there investigating it, but we don't know any other details. So then we are introduced to Beth and her husband and her brother-in-law, who all work on this farm. Whilst they're out birthing sheep, pretty sure it's sheep, all of a sudden, this seems like rabid dog comes running through and into the barn where they have all these baby lambs and these sheep mamas, and kills like 2 baby lambs. And the brother-in-law goes and grabs a shotgun and kills the dog because he is just going through these baby lambs. And then through the grass comes running a little boy and is followed along by the little boy's dad because their dog has gotten away from them. Well, it turns out this man and this little boy, well, the man is Beth's ex, who she dated while she was in high school. And this little boy is Gabriel, the ex's little boy from his marriage, who he's just recently divorced. Beth is trying to console this little boy, Leo, because he has just seen his dog killed. And trying to explain to him, you know, like, he was attacking the sheep, he could have attacked us, you know, he wasn't in control of himself, like he should have been trained properly. And she starts to develop a relationship with Leo because his mother's not there, his dad is busy a lot, and Beth is trying to fill this hole in her heart because her son, Bobby, died several years ago. So we're following Beth back and forth through time. So one of the flashbacks is of when she and Gabriel met and their relationship and what happened with them while they were together and why they ended up breaking up. And then we have the past where Beth is talking through her life with her husband and their life on the farm and all of that. And then present day is actually the murder trial. And we don't get those points of view until a little bit later on. And we find out who's on trial for murder and what happened and all of that. So definitely a murder mystery. Intriguing. I really enjoyed listening to it and enjoyed kind of the turmoil that Beth was going through in her life and some of the choices that she made that put them in this situation. So I gave Broken Country 4 stars. Then I read The Beach Club by Ellen Hildebrand. And this was the book that I listened to while I was painting my kitchen. So I have never read it. This was the first Ellen Hildebrand book that I've ever read before. And I enjoyed it. We're introduced to Mac, who is the manager of the beach club in Nantucket. And we get a couple flashbacks of his life on where he came from, why he moved to Nantucket, and how he got the job as the manager at the beach club. And then you have Bill and his wife who actually own the beach club and their daughter, Cecily, who has been away at school. And then you have Mac, who's the manager, and Maribel, his girlfriend, and a couple other people who work at the beach club. And you kind of are following their day-to-day lives throughout the summer of when the resort is open. And they've got regular customers who come every year and stay there, and people who have season passes who will come just to sit at the beach, like have a designated spot at the beach where the public isn't allowed. And it just kind of follows their day-to-day life and the drama that goes on in their day-to-day life, amongst hotel people. When you work in those kinds of industries, I worked in the restaurant industry for a long time. You're kind of your own little family, everybody who works there. And there's drama that goes on. There's relationships that go on. You're like a family. You see each other every day for long hours of the day. So you get to know each other pretty well. So this was kind of along the same lines as that. And it was good. I have a feeling that if it had taken me longer to finish it, I would have liked it less, because really it only took me like a day and a half to finish this. And so I gave it 3.5 stars. So it was fine. My first Ellen Hildebrand book. I was trying to figure out what the best reading order was for her books. And from what I could find, The Beach Club was one of the ones you should read first. It wasn't the one on top, but that one I couldn't get from the library. It wasn't available. So this was the one that I actually could get from the library. And it was fine. It was okay. It was a nice light read. I mean, there was some stuff that happened, but it was okay. And then after that, I read The Crown of Gilded Bones by Jennifer L. Armentrout. So this is the third book in the Blood and Ash series. And again, I absolutely loved this book. We're following Poppy as she is making discoveries about herself. She is finding out things about herself that she didn't know, that none of the people around her knew. And she has found out that the Ascended, especially the Queen of Solace, knew a lot of these things and kept them from her. So Poppy is in here. She's trying to prevent a war, trying to make deals so that there's not another war in the land between Solace and Atlantia. And we're following her along her journey. And again, super loved it. Just as much action in all three books, and super, super good. And so I gave Crown of Gilded Bones 4.5 stars. The next book I finished was Dead Ever After by Charlaine Harris. And this is the last book in the Sookie Stackhouse series. So if you watched my June TBR, you'll know that I read the first 12 books in the Sookie Stackhouse series like 15 years ago. And for some reason, never picked up the final book. I'm very unsure why. It just never happened. So I wasn't sure if I was actually going to read the last book or if I would have to go back a couple books to figure out what was going on. Well, I decided to just jump into the last one. And if I was too confused, then I would figure out where I needed to go back to. But then after I started reading it and I was kind of remembering some of the characters and not really remembering what was going on, because this picks up kind of right when the last one left off. Like a big thing had happened and I couldn't really remember what that big thing was. But then I decided, you know, a lot of big things happen in these books and it doesn't matter which one I go back to, I'm gonna be confused. I'm not gonna remember what that big thing was in the previous book. And if I just keep going back and back and back, I'll end up just starting the whole series over again. And I didn't really want to do that. Even though I enjoyed this series and like the books, I didn't want to start a 13 book series over again. So I just decided to be a little bit confused and not really know 100% what was going on, and it turned out just fine. It was fine. I ended up remembering a little bit. Charlaine Harris was good about kind of explaining things a little bit for those of us who couldn't remember what had happened. So that was nice. So I wasn't totally lost in the sauce. And I was slowly remembering things that had happened. So in this book, we're following Sookie. You know, more people are after her. More people are trying to kill her. Like, what's new? Everyone's trying to kill her. Eric does some things. Sam does some things. Her other friends do some things. And we're trying to prevent her from dying again. Trying to prevent her from dying. So this was a good wrap up to the story. Things ended well. And I enjoyed it. I read it pretty quickly. It's not a difficult read, but I really love this series. And I liked the show True Blood until it got off and it got away from the books. The last like 2 seasons of True Blood were a little out there because they got totally away from the books at that point. But I enjoyed this book. Glad I'm done with the series. Right now I'm listening to a novella. It's like 13.5 and it's a wrap up of what happened to everybody in the whole series. All the people she kind of goes through, like this person ended up doing this. This person ended up doing this. It's like a 45-minute audiobook and I'm like halfway through it. So getting a final wrap up. Enjoyed this series. I would recommend it if you enjoy stories about vampires and werewolves and shifters and stuff like that. So I ended up giving this book 3.75 stars. Then I finished The Women by Kristin Hannah. And if you watched my 24-hour readathon video, you will know that I started this book by Kristin Hannah, but did not finish it in that video. And after I finished filming that video, I realized that I needed to take a break from this book. So I was about halfway through and I didn't want to pick it up and read it. And it had nothing to do with the integrity of the book. I went through some stuff in June and this book was getting to me. I was really emotional while I was reading it. Now, mind you, emotional stuff happens in this book. A lot of shit goes down. It's about nurses in Vietnam. So a lot of bad shit happens and sad things. And I just needed a break from the sad stuff. Because at the same time I was listening to The Wedding People, which is about sad stuff. I was reading this, which was about sad stuff, and I was going through some sad stuff and I needed a break from it. So I took a break about halfway through and then finished this book up at the end of the month. Is this book worth reading? 100% yes. Absolutely. Is this book devastating? Yes. It is very devastating. Is it frustrating? Does it make you angry? Does it make you sad? Yes. You feel a lot of emotions. You go through a lot of feelings while you're reading this book. So in this book, we're introduced to Frankie, and she is fresh out of college and is a nurse, and brand new nurse. And her brother goes off to war in the Air Force and is killed right away. Helicopter shot down, body can't be recovered. And so because her brother Finley dies, Frankie decides that she wants to enlist and go over to Vietnam as a nurse. Well, the Army, this is ironic, the Army is the only one who will take her without any on-the-job training, which speaks very true to today. And so Frankie goes to Fort Sam Houston and trains for like 2 weeks or a month or something to be a combat nurse, and then goes right to Vietnam and is just thrown into the thick of things. So she meets a lot of great people, lots of great nurses, lots of great doctors, lots of great military members over there. She saves a lot of lives. She goes through a lot of shit. She deals with a lot of stuff. And then she comes home. And she comes home and she deals with even more shit and even more bad things. I couldn't believe the reactions of people when she got home. Because just because you have your own beliefs, how dare you treat somebody else so terribly? How dare you treat somebody else so terribly? Especially someone that you claim to love. I was just so appalled. I could not believe the way that she was treated. And the crap that she went through. So that's why I had to take a break from the book. But I got back into it and I really enjoyed it. And it makes you think and it makes you reflect. And it's sad. It makes you cry. But was this book worth it? Absolutely. Absolutely, yes, this book was worth the read. I gave this book 4.75 stars. I didn't give it a 5-star just because I didn't get that, like, in your gut 5-star feeling. And that was the only reason. But I absolutely recommend this book. Please read this. Make sure you know what you're getting into before you read it, but it was very, very good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And then the last book that I read for the month, or rather listened to, was Pretty Girls by Karin Slaughter. Now, I have listened to several Karin Slaughter books and I really enjoy them. Are they all really messed up? Yeah. Do a lot of bad things happen in those books? Yeah. Is there a lot of murder? Yes. Is there a lot of sexual assault? Yes. But the story, above all of those things, is about sisters and family bonds and being there for one another no matter what. No matter the past, no matter the wrongs that they've done for you, no matter what, you're there for your family. That is the overarching theme of this book. We're introduced to a couple of main characters. We have Claire and her husband Scott, and right off the bat, Scott is murdered in an alley right in front of Claire. And so Claire's grieving and going through all of that. And then the day of her husband's funeral, 3 men break into her house looking for something. And the detectives think that it's a ring of people who are going around breaking into people's houses while they're at the funeral, which, if you know, people actually do that. You know, you put the obituary notice in the newspaper and people will actually like come and break into your house while you're at the funeral. Like, that happens in real life. While the police are there, processing the crime scene, Claire finds some rather disturbing things on her husband's computer. And she at first is trying to hide these from the police, and then she finds more and ends up giving them to the detective. And things ensue from there on. And then we're also introduced to another character, Lydia. And Lydia has a daughter named Dee and her boyfriend, Rick. And we're kind of going through their like day-to-day lives, and Lydia is dealing with like the PTA moms at her daughter's school and things like that. And we come to find out that Claire and Lydia are sisters, and they've been through some shit in the past. And Scott's death and the things that Claire finds on his computer bring them together. And they find out a lot of bad things that had happened. Oh, and I forgot, their oldest sister, Julia, was kidnapped when she was a freshman in college. So then we also have the dead father's point of view of trying to investigate his daughter's kidnapping and presumed murder throughout the book as well. And so there's a lot of things that go on, a lot of loose ends that are tied up by the end of the book. And it's very interesting. It will make you think. Definitely a good book, definitely a good listen. I enjoy Karen Slaughter's books. They're all real fucked up though. But they're definitely interesting. So I gave Pretty Girls 4.5 stars. So really, really liked that book. So let's go through the books from our Spinner Wheel TBR for June and see which ones I read and which ones I didn't read. So first off, our first spin was a Book of the Month book, and that was Silver Elite. And if you remember, I was so excited to get this book onto my TBR. And I ran out of time to read it. I didn't get to read it. So, unfortunately, did not get to read Silver Elite. This will have to go back onto the shelves. Then our next spin was the More Than series by Jay McLean. Did not get to this book either. However, I do think I will start over from the beginning on this series. Did not get to this book. Then our third spin was a book written in the 2000s. And I had picked Witness and Death by J.D. Robb. Did not get to this one either. And I equate to not getting to those three books because I had the Blood and Ash series that I was reading, and those were more important to me to get through. So that is why I didn't get to those. Then we had another Book of the Month book, The Women. Read that. We had the Sookie Stackhouse series. Read that. We had the Douchebag series. Read that book. And then, of course, our JLA books. So none of the 3 Blood and Ash books were actually spun on the spinner wheel. So that, 3 extra books, 3 books not read, that equates to these 3. Then we had the audiobook spins. So we had Pretty Girls, read that. A seasonal book, read The Beach Club by Ellen Hildebrand. Then a library pick, which was The Wedding People, read that. And then our last one was a Kate Quinn book, and I did not get to a Kate Quinn book, unfortunately. I tried to, at the library, check out the Alice Network and something else. It said there were copies available at the library on Libby. Went to check them out, and it said, this library is in collaboration with another library, and this title is not available. I'm like, well, then why are you saying it's available? And it was like some kind of error and try again. So for some reason, I wasn't actually able to check those books out. I don't know what's going on with the library and like the sharing rights and whatever, but I wasn't able to check any of the books out. So any of the ones that were available, I wasn't able to check out. So did not get to listen to a Kate Quinn book this month, but read some really good books this month. Really enjoyed everything that I read. I got through a lot of books. 11 books is a lot for me, for sure. Even though I didn't get through a whole lot of books in my 24-hour readathon, because I was expecting to get through at least 2, if not into a 3rd book for that readathon. And I was going through so much stuff, I just didn't feel like reading. It was like the last thing I wanted to do was like pick up a book and read, because my brain just couldn't concentrate on it. So, but I still, you know, attempted. It was my first attempt at a 24-hour readathon. So if you're interested in seeing that video, I'll link it below. And I don't think that there's anything else. So I've already posted my July Spinner Wheel TBR. I had to record that early in the month just because of my schedule. And after I had made that video, Becca from Becca Books and Bujo posted her Deck of TBR-a-thon readathon for July. So I am trying to participate in that. And basically what you do is you have a deck of cards and you draw a card, and that the number or the letter correspond to a prompt, and you can get different points for different like levels within that prompt. And so I'm trying to draw a card and see if it will correspond to one of the books on my already set TBR. Just because I don't want to try to really add any more books in there. Also, I got an announcement from Illumicrate that the second book in the Mistress of Lies series by Enright, K.M. Enright. I don't know the name of that series, but the first book is Mistress of Lies. And it was an Illumicrate book that I got towards the end of last year, like the fall of last year, something like that. And the second book in that series, they're putting out a pre-order at the end of July. So I've added that one to my July TBR to see if I like that book or not, in order to pre-order the second book in that series. I'm trying to kind of stay on top of those so that I'm not pre-ordering books that I won't like or won't read, but also not missing out on the chance to have the series match. So I'm going to read that one to see if I enjoy it, because I have heard mixed reviews. I know Becca from Becca and the Books read it, she didn't like it, and I've heard some mixed reviews. The Goodreads reviews aren't that great, so I'm going to read it and gather my own opinion and see if I need to pre-order the next one. So thank you for tuning in. Hopefully this wrap-up isn't too terribly long. Let me know down below if you want me to include more stats, like different genres, breakdown and stuff like that. I can try to do that next month. But please like this video, subscribe if you want to, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.